Welcome to Pro Audio Profiles. My name is Brendan Decora, and each week I'll be hosting different guests, mainly engineers and producers, but also people from across the industry. Enjoy the show. On today's show, we have Aldo Shllaku. He's an accomplished film composer who has credits on films such as The Comeback Trail, The Price We Pay, and Vanquish. Enjoy. Thank you for being here, first and foremost. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So I'd like to start just by, having you walk through your backstory, history, how you got here, that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, I'm a film composer. Classically trained since at a very young age. I have a composition degree from the University of Montreal, and then grad school I did the film scoring here at USC. In the meantime, I've played in different nightclubs and stuff. And
what's your main instrument?
Piano and trumpet.
Okay.
So I have had a little bit of that exposure of the performing
right.
on stage with different bands and whatnot.
Right.
So which actually is a good thing to do.
Yeah. And how long have you been in LA?
About 20 years now.
Nice.
Actually, yeah.
Nice.
Came here in 2002 to do the USC grad school, and then ended up staying.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you do mainly films or television? Is there anything you stick with, or
films and television is basically 95% of my my activity, and everything else I do has to be somehow related to it.
Right. So one of the reasons why I was excited to interview you in particular, because as a film composer, you're kind of on both sides of this, because what I like to talk about on the podcast is how to get great results from artists in the studio. But as a composer, you're kind of the artist and the producer at the same time when you're going to the studio and recording people. I mean, obviously you do a lot of stuff here in your room, but I'm sure you still go to studios sometimes. So I'm interested to see your take on, the differences of, because you're working with engineers in the studio and how they can help you as an artist and producer, get good results from the artists.
Well, my job is that is that I have to write, compose, produce, record, at times pre-mix, so that I can get approvals from the decision makers of those projects I'm involved with, and get them approved, and then move to the production side of things.
Right.
So, of course, I record here in this room musicians all the time, be that a guitar player, be that a singer, be that a violin player, be that...
Right.
But now we don't even have to do that at times, because you can get them recorded online. Musicians, they have their own rooms now, or their own setups or whatnot. So it's something that I do like, because first it saves a bit of time. There's a compromise to be made, right? Always you save the time because someone is doing it for you somewhere, but then you're not there with them to get the performance that you really want.
Right.
So I kind of, depending on the project, on the deadlines, on what needs to be done, basically, that's where the decision would lie with in terms of, do I need someone here for sure, or I'm okay with recording it remote, or and so on.
And I know that there's some services like where you can record an orchestra in Moscow or places like that remotely, and you can be live with them in the session over the internet.
Of course, yeah. There's the remote recordings are all over Europe basically, and they have flourished in the past years because I'd say 20 years, because of the union issues that we have here with the musicians, and the producers don't want to pay union scale here for our musicians here, so we have no choice but to go out of town.
Right.
I've used Moscow before the invasion of Ukraine.
Right.
So let's not forget that. Even though those musicians, they have no. They actually, some of them were arrested.
Really?
Yes, because of they were demonstrating against the invasion and so on, and then of course they were arrested and.
Jeez.
And anyway, so I've used Moscow, I've used Prague, I've used Macedonia,
Okay.
Skopje, and I've used also Berlin, which is my favorite one.
Okay.
And,
Nice.
yeah, so it's great. For Berlin, actually, I did go there myself.
You did?
Yes.
And how does that vary? Obviously, there's, technological hurdles you have to overcome when doing a remote session, but is it still acceptable to like produce over the internet like that?
Oh yeah,
or-
absolutely. Of course, yeah. I mean, you use we use these orchestras. I would not say on a daily basis, on a per project basis, I would say, and it depends on the budgets that you have to work with. It depends
Right.
on the deadline, because that's a major thing that we have to take into account. How much time do we have to do everything, and then how
Right.
much time do I have to actually do what I want to do with that project,
Right.
which is where to
Yeah.
record and so on. So I tend to always record something because it brings that humanity to whatever we do.
Right.
Even an electric guitar, I would like to bring a guitar player in and just have
Yeah.
a bit of that proper riff and that bend and all those
Exactly.
things. Drums, I do know how to program a good drum part, but it's not the
not the
same.
same.
No,
Yeah.
it's not the same crack on the snare. It's not
Right.
that imperfection is what makes it
Right.
very human.
And when
So-
you're working with, when you're actually engineering, musicians here in your studio, what are some of the things you do to kind of inspire them? I know it's different because a lot of times they're just session musicians, so it's not like you're working with an artist directly, but a musician is a musician. Like you still have to make them comfortable. You still have to do certain things. What are some steps you take?
Yeah, we're actually blessed here in LA to have these kind of musicians that we have. That
Right.
they're they're basically scary. You bring them in and you tell them, okay, out of your 20 instruments that you play, you know what? I want you to pick up this ethnic flute from Cambodia or something, and I want this line. Here are the notes. Here's my mock-up. Here's the feeling I want.
Right.
Here's the context of the project. Here's what it is about. Here's what the solo represents. What the theme should mean. And then you hit record, and then you get it.
Right.
And
That's crazy.
I would say, yeah, with these session musicians, it's not easy because you have to have that conversation, that creative conversation. But I would say it's not that complicated to get understood by
Right.
these people.
Right.
When you bring in a singer, where you're recording, let's say, a song for a movie, and that's a different story because you're working with an artist that
Right.
that doesn't necessarily know the process of film scoring
Right,
or
right.
stuff material that is recorded for the movies or TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, with those people you have to spend a bit more time because you
Yeah.
have to walk that balance of to give the freedom to the artist to express themselves and so on. To also let them know that everything that is recorded and performed has to be in conjunction with what we see on screen.
Right. Right.
Because that's the ultimate purpose of it, to support
course.
what we see.
Of course.
So-
And how does that vary? I know, like, you and I have actually worked on projects where we do just songs for artists.
exactly,
It's not for a film. So, with that experience, how does that vary between the two?
Between the two is that when it's an artist with a song just for the sake of the song, then you're completely free to experiment, to do everything you want. And so the one of the concerns that has to do with, is this going to work with picture, especially with dialogue,
Right.
especially with sound effects that they have there and so on.
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention to that. That's the only difference, I would say. Because the feeling, the edge, the groove, the whatever the song
Right,
is, you
right.
have to have it because
Of course.
that's the whole point of the painting that scene with a different brush and not the score. You put in a song, you got to give something to it, right?
Right.
That's why you're taking a song. The lyrics are super important, what they're saying. But you have to pay attention to the characters on screen.
Exactly.
When no movie is involved, then you can do anything you want.
It's easy. Yeah. You're just doing it for the sake of the song,
Exactly.
and that's it.
Yeah. It's whatever the song needs
Right.
for itself to stay on its ground, on its feet, on the ground. That's what you want.
Right.
Yeah. So that would
Cool.
be the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you approach the collaboration process with directors and producers to understand their vision for the film's music?
Yeah, that's the loaded question.
That's $1 million question.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's on a per project basis. You get a full spectrum of 180 degrees. You get producers that don't necessarily have the vocabulary or the musical training
Right.
to explain what they want, and you get producers or directors that were in a band themselves,
Right.
or they even have a band still going. So, so in that case, or they're actually accomplished musicians. I have one case, the director George Gallo. I've done, I don't know, 4 or 5 films now with him.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of those directors that he has perfect pitch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
He comes in and says to me, that saxophone there is a bit out of pitch. I'm like, actually, yes, you're right. Yeah, so
Right.
so you get a bit of everything, but the discussion is always on what's needed. What does the story need,
Right.
first and foremost? And then you try to work with that vision, and then between the producer and director, let's say, and you bring in a singer,
Mm-hmm.
I would serve as the middleman
Right.
to try to navigate that uncharted territory of and try to translate what one is saying, so that everybody gets whatever is needed.
Right. Right.
But again, if it's for a movie, you gotta the goal is to serve the movie.
Of course.
So
Yeah. Nice.
that's how you do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, you could give them a microphone in front of them and tell them, okay, go figure it out, but
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. And when hiring and producing session musicians, what qualities do you look for to ensure that they can deliver the best results?
Again, it's on from my perspective. It would depend on the deadlines, because if the deadline is very short, like very short and very limited, and you have, let's say, some crazy deadlines that we've had in 2 weeks, you got to give us a full score, done, written, produced,
Wow.
recorded, mixed.
That's crazy.
Yes, that's. Then I don't think you have the ability to take the time and to explore and to find artists that are not kind of established,
Right.
which is not good at times, because it's a catch-22. To get established, you need a chance, and then
Yeah.
So, but when you have the time, of course, you call people, you call friends. Hey, do you know anybody that is this? Oh, yeah, I know this person that is very talented, and and then you meet, and then you hear things, you check their stuff,
Right.
you explain what you need, and you give them a chance. You take your time and you do it properly, and that's
Yeah.
how you.
Yeah.
But that's the ideal scenario, right?
Yeah.
But on an everyday basis, though, it will depend on the project.
Right.
Again,
And
deadlines.
the schedules and deadlines in film can be insane. I personally remember numerous times where I've been on the way to a studio to do an orchestra session, and I see a billboard for the movie we're about to record. It's
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. No, deadlines, I mean, they do sound a bit like arbitrary and so on, but if there is a short deadline, or if it's a crazy deadline, it's not the producer's fault. I mean, there's so many moving parts in the
Exactly.
movie making
Yeah.
that nobody knows what the other, because you have the actors, you have the pre-production, you have the financing, you have, and then you go and shoot the movie, and then you have then you have post-production,
Right.
and then you have dealing with distribution and people that get involved to actually let this movie
And
out.
all the
and
marketing and yeah.
it's a lot of people. I mean, to
Yeah.
even get a movie out, it's a huge success story, regardless what the movie is, regardless of the
Just to
artistic
release it.
merit. Just to get it out there, it's like, whoo,
Right.
wow, here's an Oscar for getting it out there.
Right. And usually music is the very last
The
stage.
last thing, yeah.
So do you ever get involved earlier in the process? I know some composers do.
Yes, the one I'm working right now, actually, I'm writing. It's one of those dream come true kind of scenarios.
Okay.
And I'm writing music now based on the script,
Right.
themes and everything.
Nice.
And the movie is to be shot in I don't know, 6 months from now.
Nice.
Like in February.
Nice.
So that's like one of. It's one of the very few ones.
Right.
And it works. These kind of things work with a director that you worked before.
Yes.
They know what you can do. They know your sensibilities. You know what they want. You know that, so you can have that conversation. Most of the time, though, is the movie is done. We have a cut. To make it even worse, there's a temp track on it. Just to show you what they're thinking. Like the conversation doesn't do it anymore. Here's the music. Here's what we want.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, all right, let's
I just have to recreate that.
and I recreate. Well, kind of, but also it's funny at times because you get these movies that are low budget films, let's say, and you have a movie such these kind of movies tempt with scores of the biggest blockbuster out there.
Jeez.
And then they tell you, okay, here's what we want. And you're like,
Right.
okay, first, what is the budget again?
Yeah.
And second, how much time do we have for this? And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, okay, I'll figure it out, I guess. I'll call Brendan to mix it and sound better or
Yeah.
something, you know, because there's so much you can do.
Right.
But every challenge, though, is a good one, I would say, is a way of... I have to tell you, these low-budget films or with limited resources are the ones that I'm most proud of. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Because they do kind of accept the fact, the producers, director, that everybody's working on limited resources.
Right. So
they would kind of let go a bit of
Right.
things,
Right.
which means that your creative input is going to be accepted more.
Right.
And I would say 100% of the time, actually, in my experience, is that all of these projects, whenever the movie is out, everybody talks about the music, let's say.
Nice.
They say, oh, wow, and they're super happy, the director, the producer, because they
Awesome.
see the reaction
Right,
of
right.
people. And that's when I come in and I tell them, you see, maybe, next time, maybe you should let the composer do his thing,
Maybe you should give me some more money.
That too, of course, so that I can have an ice cream at the end when I
Exactly.
deliver the score.
Exactly.
So, but look, everybody's in the same on the same side of the trench here. We're in the same war. We're all in the same on the same boat.
For sure.
I see. So
Nice. And can you share any memorable experiences or challenges you faced when working with session musicians?
Challenges in terms of technical and like professional levels? No. The challenges, I would say, they do start when what your expectations are and what your resources are.
Right.
So a challenge, for example, was once when I had a movie that I wanted a guitar player to play on every cue of the film.
Okay.
Like it was like, I don't know, 90 minutes of a score.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I had only 3 hours to do it.
What?
Yeah. And so basically you hit record and you tell these guys, you tell, okay, I'm thinking this cue, I just want some textures, stay away from melodic stuff and so on. And let's go. I hit record. Here are some white pedals. Put your guitar in. You know any of this? No. Okay, well, let's hit it anyways, So,
Right.
and then you go for it. And then at the end, of course, I would need to take my time and keep what kind of fits and kind of works. But these are the challenges that,
Right.
But these musicians, I have to tell you, these guys, you tell them, look, we have 3 hours to do 90 minutes. They're like, okay, let's go. Go.
Yeah.
Hit it.
Hit record now.
Hit record. That's it. I get it. Go. So, I mean, they're kind of trained. They're a
Right.
special breed
Yeah.
here in LA.
Yeah.
But it's become, a normal now. It's normal now to they do know what we go through.
Right.
The musicians.
Right.
Even
sure.
in different parts of the world, you just tell them, look, I have this and I need this. How can we do this?
Yeah.
And then they take it personally, which is good. In Berlin, for example, it was when I did this movie called The Comeback Trail, full-on orchestra for a lot of, there was a lot of music in there.
Yeah.
And I had a specific budget, and I had 2 days with the orchestra. And of course, I needed another 3 hours to do what I had to do. Well,
Right.
guess what? They said, you know what? You came to us. You didn't go to somewhere else. You know what? We'll do it. I'm
Right.
like, I said, are you guys
Really?
German or what's going on here?
For free?
For free.
Wow.
They just gave me that bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, they just wanted to nail it.
Right.
And it was across the board.
Nice.
Yeah, because the studio is an issue,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody said, "Look, you came here to do this. You could have gone anywhere. Well, we're gonna give it to you." And
Nice.
I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And guess what? On the second film, I didn't even contemplate to go somewhere else.
Right.
I just went there because
Exactly.
you gotta. It's not a
Yeah, have a
payback, but
relationship.
you gotta
Yeah.
appreciate their support. And this is not to take work from other people, but
Right.
you gotta respect that, that goodwill.
Right.
So,
of course. And can you walk us through your creative process when composing a film score? How do you go about capturing the emotions and atmosphere of a scene through music?
Yeah. That's another loaded question.
Yes.
Because that point will have to start for me after I've had the discussions with the producer and
course.
the director,
Yes.
especially the director.
Of course.
So you sit down, you talk about it, you watch the movie together, you do this process called spotting, where you and the director or the producer, you sit down and you decide where the music comes in and where the music comes out.
Right.
And for each one of these pieces, segments where the music is in and out, you decide, you talk about it. What's important? What does the music need to bring?
Right. What emotions?
What's not working? Let's say with that scene that they cannot go back to reshoot it. Let's say, and how the music should be the one
Right.
leading or misleading the audience, or it's just that extra layer of retelling the story. Actually, you know what they say about the movie, that the movie can be told and written twice after it's been written and it's been shot. You have two more chances to rewrite the story. One by editing, when you do the editing, because you can recut it and so on, and one when you do the music.
Yeah.
You can retell the story and you can say, look, this moment here, you're supposed to feel, I don't know, dramatic, romantic.
Yeah, the music plays a huge part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once I've had the discussion and once we've decided where goes where, then I sit down and I take my first pass on the most difficult scenes. That's what I attack first.
Okay.
That's for me. If you address those scenes first, then you have a clear. I have a clear structure in my head. Okay, how everything else is going to have to fit, and so on. And then you just go from there, and you select also the group of themes. Let's say the action theme is here, the dramatic theme is here, in blocks of cues, and then once you find the main theme for each group, then you kind of have a lead where to go.
Nice.
I've had a movie where one of the themes for the main character, I just couldn't. I worked for like a month, and I was not happy with and I said, you know what, I can spend another 6 months trying to find this theme and miss the deadlines and everything.
Yeah.
So how about just forget about that theme. It's not ready yet. It's not coming out. Let's work on the rest.
Right.
And see what happens. So guess what? Just one day, as I was wrapping up 5 cues of something else, I started playing. I'm like, wait a minute, that's it. I found the theme. So at times in the creative process, you gotta also know when to just put it aside for a little bit and just keep the process going.
Right.
Because if you get stuck on if you get stuck on something, then it's not a smart thing to just say, I'm gonna crack this now.
Right.
It's gonna come on its own.
That honestly, I was just mixing a song the other day where I kind of got stuck and I got fully stuck. It was like, you know what? I'm just going to put this aside, go run some errands, do something else, come back later in the day.
Eat some ice cream, maybe?
Maybe eat some ice cream. But other times, you're on a deadline, you have to keep going. You just focus on a different part. You work on something else and just to keep it flowing, for sure.
But I mean, I've set deadlines during our talk here a few times, and I don't want to, make it like, oh my God, where's the creative aspect of this process and so on, deadlines. And look, deadlines, I think they're very good.
Yes.
Even if I didn't have a project with a movie or whatever, I need deadlines myself. You need to do this by then.
Right.
So this way you kind of have a structure also, how you function and focused energy and focused creativity so that you know what you're doing. And then you have time to take a walk, then you have time to put the headphones on and listen to something or go and listen to Mahler at LA Phil and say, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to be, and then come back here and say, okay, let me see if I can do, like a little bit like that, get inspired, basically.
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely important because, I've worked with artists where he's like, oh yeah, we have no deadline, whatever. And they drag stuff on so long that it gets to the point where it's not healthy anymore.
Exactly.
It's like you lose your perspective, you lose objectivity, So it's definitely important to have like the incentive of a deadline.
Yeah, to have a structure. Because you know what? You also change. You don't feel the same.
Right.
You keep writing, because that's how you feel at that time. and then you drag it, and then you don't 6 months, I don't know what, sometime later you don't feel the same way, and then whatever you've done doesn't feel right anymore.
Right.
And the whole point of writing a song or a piece of music or whatever is that it's a little picture of that moment and how you express it musically, be that with a song, lyrics, band, instrumental, class, I don't know what, orchestral music. It's just a snapshot of how you felt at that moment.
Right.
So dragging it, it's never going to end because you keep changing, and that's not going to work. And it's this and it's that. And I tend to also work with people that do understand the the concept of deadline.
Right.
Because I rely on them, because people are relying on me to deliver a certain thing by a certain time. Because, on a film, let's say on a TV, writing a piece of music, it's not having someone writing the music. It's an important part of the whole thing, but it's not the most important part.
Right.
The most important thing is that the whole process functions.
Right.
Relying on each other. That's why they call it a collaborative effort.
Right.
So let's say I write the music and I have an engineer that is going to mix it for me and take this thing to a different level when it comes to sonics and all that stuff. I cannot afford to tell the producer, you know what, the music is done, everything is done, but the mixer doesn't feel like mixing today because, because...
You wanted an ice cream.
Ice cream, or wanted to take a walk by the, it just didn't feel it today.
Right.
To put a compressor on the cue, didn't really feel it. So, no offense to the mixer, they have their right, but, so that's why I kind of... But you know what? There's a lot of good people here in this town, and they do understand what it takes to get the opportunity to let's say work on a project.
Right.
First, you have to cherish that because you have to go with an optimistic view. Not that, oh my God, it's the chance of my no, but you get to do what you want to do. You get to do what you love to do. So if you go with that positive energy, positive approach on it. And everybody around you is going to go like that as well, going to approach it like that because you do kind of feed on each other.
Right.
I get excited when I get a mix from you, let's say.
Yeah.
It sounds like crap here because I don't give a, I have no time to deal with mixing.
All the details.
No, it's not my job to do that. My job is to write, to bring it to a place where my decision makers say, sounds great. I have to make it sound amazing to get the approval.
Right.
But then once they're out of the way, then we talk music and then we do our thing and then it sounds amazing and then I get, oh my God, what did I do here?
Yeah.
So it's like one layer on top of a layer and makes that amazing cake at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it goes to the dub stage, and then they pull the music down, and then you're like,
you can't hear anything.
Yeah, you're like, where's that cliff? Where's the highest cliff so I can jump and see if I'm gonna, land?
Exactly.
But it's all good at the end. So
right. Yeah. That actually ties into my next question here: is how do you ensure that the recorded music translates well to the final film, considering post-production and mixing stages?
Yep. Again, you got to work with people that take it seriously. Attention to detail. Obviously, they have to know what the technical side of things, gain staging and formats, and no technical issues, sync with Pro Tools, sync time codes and time frames, and all the bit resolutions and kilohertz and all that stuff, because it has happened. I mean, it has happened. It will always happen. A little mistake will happen. We've had one time that we had the wrong frame rate, and it was like it should have been 2397, and we had 25 for some reason.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was just an honest mistake, and of course everything was like 2 frames off.
Oh, jeez.
And then by the end of the movie, you're a lot off.
Yeah.
And the dub stage called and said, "Hey, are you supposed to hit the music? Is it supposed to hit when he's sleeping?"
Right.
No.
Oh, jeez.
We're supposed to have a big kaboom when the guy trying to kill the guy sleeping
Right.
comes in the room.
Exactly.
And then, well, can you take a look? And of course.
Yeah.
But it takes, again, these mistakes are human, so we don't do them very often.
Right.
It's once in
Try
a blue
not to.
moon. No, we don't. Yeah. We make sure that they're not there. But if it ends up being there, you want the people to really know, oh, hold on here, let's
Right.
fix it. I'm going to stop my walk short. I'm going to go back to the studio and finish it and
Yeah.
redeliver it ASAP so that other people can keep working.
Right.
So
Right.
so you got to rely on people that approach your project the same way you approach it.
Of course.
Because
Of course.
for me, it's my baby.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm leaving my family to be here, to write it, to do it, to all that stuff, and I would expect that the engineer or the musicians or they do kind of the same thing for that amount of time that they have.
Of course. Yeah.
Because my producer has left his family for probably
Yeah.
5 years.
Right.
So it's just like a
Right. Exactly. I just want to take a quick break and tell you about my free guide for creating massive snare sounds. In it, I go over all my techniques, from drum choices, tuning, microphone placements, even mixing techniques. Check it out now at brendandecora.com/huge-snare. And now, back to the show. And have there been any particular projects or collaborations that have been especially meaningful or rewarding to you as a composer?
Yeah, the one I recorded in Berlin was an amazing experience because it was the 3rd or 4th film I was doing with the same director, George Gallo, and he has a name for himself as a filmmaker. He wrote Bad Boys. He wrote Midnight Run, a very funny movie that as a kid I watched it, and who knew that one day I'd be working with George, and that was meaningful because George said to me, "Okay, here is the movie where you get your orchestra and do whatever the hell you want to do."
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, so it took me a second to kind of adjust myself that, just be the composer you wanted to be.
Right.
Take that pen and paper and start writing like that. And that's how I wrote it, actually.
Nice.
I had time for that one. Wrote the themes on the piano, the first 3-4 themes on the piano. Did a mock-up also. And I called him one day and he said, "Why don't you come by the set in New Mexico? We're shooting the movie there. Why don't you come there?"
Nice.
I said, "Sure." So I showed up there, amazing, and I said to him, "I have a couple of themes. You want to hear them?" He's like, "Of course I want to."
Right.
He hears the piano ones. It's like, "Don't change a note."
Nice.
But you get this kind of feedback from a director that really knows music. And I said, "Well, how about you hear the mock-up now? What it's supposed to sound like?" And I hear it. He heard it, and I played. He hears it, and then he says to me, "Not only you shouldn't change a note, but if you change, I'm going to kill you." So I knew that I was in the right direction, basically. And
Nice.
that was very rewarding. And then going to Berlin, and we recorded at Teldex, and it was a whole.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's also other kind of experiences where you working on a film. I did a movie called The Price We Pay. Horror film, thriller, again with a director that you also know, Yuhei Kitamura, Japanese, very Japanese when it comes to style, very kind of hardcore and so on.
Right.
It was one of those. He calls in the middle of the night, says, "Hey, tomorrow I'm going to New Mexico." I'm like, "Okay, can I help you? Do you want to ride or something or what?" "We're going to shoot a movie. We're going to be back in 12 days, and you're doing the score, right?" "I guess I'm doing it." Yeah. So he's like, "As you know, no resources, very limited stuff. Let's knock this out of the ballpark." Okay. So that was the context of the film. But it's very rewarding because you're like, you know what? Everybody's giving their all.
Yeah.
Can we make this movie? You know what? Let's make it. We're all friends. The director is a friend. The DP is a friend. A couple of actors are friends. We've worked with them on certain films. So it's a group of people trying to make a movie. And you know what? It does feel that everybody gave everything they had.
Right.
So that's rewarding too.
Nice.
Yeah, you gotta take a second job in order to to pay your rents and your stuff, but it's rewarding
Right,
as an artist.
There's some gigs. I think you've even told me that you're actually paying to do the job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. These kind of, because here's where that creative, your artistic integrity, if I can say this in this podcast, it is important.
Of course.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to go through this process of doing this film, if you say yes, right? Creating this music, writing the songs. It's going to hurt during that process, right? But if somehow you go over it and you do what you wanted to do and you really give it your all, 3 months later, 4 months later, a year later, 2 years later, you're going to go back, you're going to hear it and you're going to say, you know what? I did a good job on this one. I don't know how I did it, but it's done.
Right.
And I'm also a true believer of this. If you do something, give it your all, because that thing is going to be out there for forever.
Yeah.
And you never know what's going to happen. It has its own life.
Yeah.
Someone's going to hear it. It's going to say, wait a second, who did this?
Right.
So nothing goes, So,
exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer directly your question, paying to, so in the name of that artistic integrity and so on, is that if you have that limited resource, for example, I somehow at times have spent all of it.
Right.
All of it. And when I say, you know what, the guitar was great, the cello was good, I had the flute, the ethnic flutes, it'd be good to put also a real bass player in this thing.
Right.
You know what? Screw it. I'll pay it myself. And that's when you're like, you know what? They will never understand why I need a real bass player. Because the kick drum is real, and I want that real bass to hit it, so that fundamentals are where they should be.
The right feeling.
Yeah, of course. And or tell them, Brendan wants 12 channels of the drums because 8 are not enough for him. So we gotta get, or what is it now? 16 tracks now, or something like that.
As many as you can get.
Exactly. So. Yeah, you got to do it.
Of course.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, no ice cream for 2 weeks, but we're going to get the bass player. Yeah, so that's, look, we're in this because we really want to do it. And obviously we have to make a living. It's a profession. Mm-hmm. But it's a balance of, you also have to be happy with what.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, it has a life of its own. You never know who's going to hear it.
Yeah.
That one project could turn into a whole career later.
Absolutely. Well, it has happened to me a few times, not once, a few times.
Right. I actually know someone that was also a mixing engineer, but they're working for a composer. Composer comes to them and say, "Hey, I have this this trailer we're doing. It's just like a test basically, where it's probably not going to be anything. Can you do it for me? Make it work." Turns out it was X-Files. They were literally worked on that project for the next 15 years.
There you go.
It's
no, I mean, of course. Look, I can tell you one experience. I was producing a song once, and I brought the singer here in LA, and a friend of mine was doing the mixing, and his name is Michael from Delhi. Mm-hmm. And Michael says to me, "I'm going to bring in someone that we need." And this guy shows up to help with the mixing and all that stuff. It was at the Village, I believe. We did it, or I can't remember where it was, but it was one of these studios. And he brought this guy, and this guy was amazing on that song. And we finished the song. We had some insane musicians, Nathan East and Michael Thompson and J.R. Robinson and so on. Well, that guy ends up, after that, I liked him so much doing that process there that he ended up mixing, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, I don't even remember how many scores of mine. And his name is Brandon Decora, sitting right next to me. So this is how it works, man.
Yep. That session sounds familiar.
This is how it,
Yep. Exactly.
And that's how it works. And I didn't know you then at all. It was Michael that said, "I'm going to bring this guy." I said, "Michael, you bring whoever you want. Jesus Christ, let's meet Jesus. Can you bring Jesus?" Right. No. Okay, well. So that's how it works. Nice. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Awesome.
So I thought of being very direct here with this example. So,
exactly. So how do you stay inspired and continually push the boundaries of your creativity as a composer?
Yeah, it's a tough one because you can get. Actually, it's a very good question. This one, because you can get very much into a composer's life is a very solitary life. You know, you got to be alone in your room, in front of your piano, in front of your guitar, whatever the instrument is. So you got to search deep in your soul to find that chord, right? Or those 2-3 notes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's tough. At times it's tough, and you have to feed yourself in order to be able to say what you want to say, to be articulate and inspired.
Right.
When you actually say something in musical terms. I can tell you what I'm doing the past year. I actually bought a membership to the LA Phil.
Okay.
For the whole year. And
Nice.
actually they have these great packages. You buy 8 concerts or whatever, and you pick your own concerts, whatever you want.
Nice.
I have to tell you, I've been loving it.
That's good.
We're going to Europe this summer, and guess what? My 5-year-old asks me, are we going to be able to see Europe? I said,
Right.
well, we are going to Europe. She's like, no. Are we going to be able to see the band Europe? So I had forgotten that every morning when we have breakfast, she and we hear at the final countdown, rock now, rock the night, all those superstitions and all those 80s, crazy pop that I used to, hard rock that I used to hear, and she loves them now all of a sudden. And she's asking me, can we go and find a concert that 5 years old?
Right.
So we did find a concert, and we're gonna go to that concert.
Nice.
So that's we're gonna have to sneak her in because you have to be 7-year-old and higher.
Okay.
But we're gonna put her in a backpack or something. But you gotta find your places and your bands and your
inspiration.
orchestra. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Maybe read a book or something, and that's gonna watch a movie.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
It's a tough one. It's a very personal thing, though.
Yeah.
I would say, just go out there, man. Go to the Baked Potatoes, and you hear our LA's finest, and it's just like, especially Monday night or Tuesday night, they have the jam night.
Okay.
You don't even know who shows up, and then you see some, and you're like, wait a minute, is that Vinny Caliuda?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Right.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, we're blessed in the city to have this exposure. So just go out there and hear, or actually collaborate. Mm-hmm. Just pick up a collaboration.
And I personally know that you like to get new toys as well. So there's always that to inspire you, and a new plug-in, a new piece of gear, whatever it is.
Yes, I've been, of course. I mean, you were the one actually that gave me my diagnosis. I had never heard the acronym for my diagnosis.
Yes.
And you said, do you have gas? I'm like, gas? What do you mean? Where is the gas? Is the gas leak? You're like, no, gear acquisition syndrome.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, that's what it means. Yes. Lately, I've been actually focusing more on weird instruments, like weird stuff. Mm-hmm. And I found this welder in Colorado. He's built me a couple of instruments, and I'm having fun with also, the Eurorack behind me. Mm-hmm. I just bought one thing that is like a cello electronic, which has CV on it, and you can send it through Sense and just to whatever. Right. It's the Soma thing, and I felt bad getting it now because I thought they're shipping from Poland, and somehow they ship from Russia, and but it's a cheap one anyway. So it's not. I'm not supporting. Even though these guys have been out there forever, and it's like a shitty situation with what's happening. But you just get these toys, and you get this. It's a frame of mind. You got to put it into let's explore a bit, and let's find something else. Let's bang a piece of metal ready through plugins and reverbs and plates and I don't know, just distortion. You never know what's gonna come out. Hit record, leave it on, just bang on stuff. And I saw a guy, speaking of inspiration, I saw a guy on YouTube. He was like, let me show you what I found out. I'm a Logic user, and he has this table. He puts a few objects on the table, and he says, "Here's my sandal, and this is going to be my kick drum." I'm like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? Here's some bolt. Here's my snare, and here's my plate. Here's my tom 1, and here's my hi hat. A couple of glasses." I'm like, "Okay, fine. Let's listen to this guy."
Right.
So he's probably high on something, or I don't know, he's trying to be smart, right? So he records these patterns, and a very nice drummer, like on time and like good. And it's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to replace all these sounds with Logic's drum sound replacer or whatever.
Right.
I don't use it because I tend to program my own drums or hire a drummer or whatever. He replaces these things with, here, this is my snare, here's my kick, and you hear that thing. And it was like mind-blowing, a real freaking drum set. What the heck is this? And it was inspiring. I'm like, wait, let me take a look at this. I can do this too. Let me put some big toms or timpanis or something.
Yeah.
So inspiration
awesome.
comes from
everywhere.
Yeah, just keep your eyes and your ears open and
right.
and let it go.
Nice.
So,
is there any current or recent projects that you want to talk about that you can talk about?
I will talk about this one I'm working on without giving titles.
Sure.
So it's actually, I would say it's the best ever because I got to read the book on which the script was based on.
Oh, wow.
I got to read this 4 versions of the scripts, and I get to speak with the director from now. What do you think is needed, and how can we do this? I'm writing themes here. He's hearing them, and his thinking also in terms of what he wants to do as a filmmaker now, based on the themes that I'm giving him.
Right.
So, and that's an amazing experience. I mean, this is the best that it could be.
That's actually a question I had earlier. I have known composers that will write to the script and, do mock-up ideas based on the script alone. And sometimes they'll even be played at the set while the actors are shooting.
Exactly.
So the actors can get into the vibe, everything.
Of course. Yeah, there's let's say Morricone. I don't know if Ennio Morricone, famous film composer.
Okay.
He was known for, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all those Sergio Leone, Once Upon a Time in America, and all the Tarantino films. He's done them. The Hateful Eight, he did them. He did not them. He did the score for that movie. So Morricone, basically, he would not write to picture, never.
Wow.
He would take the script, sit down, write his score, give it to the director, and he was done.
And done.
That was it.
That's crazy.
That was it. His studio, right? He had a studio. Was one room in Rome, in Italy, and he had one desk, like a normal desk, like a lawyer's desk or something, like a teacher's desk, and a piano at the end of the room. That was it.
Huh.
Yep. He'll take the piece of paper, write his thing, try a couple of things on the piano, keep writing, go record it, hand it to the director, done.
That's crazy.
So, and, Morricone, Cinema Paradiso, or all these films that are like, oh my God,
Right.
So that's one way of working. Another way of working now here is that there's more and more composers now that what they do is that they get the script, or even they push to get into the as early as they can.
Right.
Which is very smart because that's how it has to be. They get either the script or a very rough cut or dailies or something of the footage, and they start writing themes. And also, based on the themes, they do a suite, meaning they put all the themes and you record them with an ensemble, whatever the orchestra or whatever the approach for that score is. You record, let's say, a 20 minutes long piece where all the themes are in there, and then they give it to the director or to the editor, and then they start using it during the shoot so the actors can hear to get inspired and so on. Or if the shooting is done, they give it to the editor so the editor can start putting it as a temp track.
Right.
So that way, temp tracks. Exactly. Yeah. So that way you get rid of the other temp tracks that have nothing to do with the film, and then by hearing it more and more, the producers get married to the temp track, and then you have these problems after the fact that you try to put your own voice after, and then like, well, the temp track though sounds like that, and you're like, oh yeah, you've been hearing it for 2 years, that's why you love it. So yeah, that's how you do it today in order to. But the second option that I gave you is the one that you try to minimize the pejorative, the negative effects of the temp track.
Right.
The first one, Morricone, he did it because that was the way he worked.
Yeah.
He just wrote the whole score based on the script, and that was it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they would cut to the music.
And they edit it. Then, yeah.
And that's why it's very poetic. All the films that have his music, they're very fluid. They're very,
Right.
because they're cutting to the to the music.
That's crazy.
So yeah,
So then the project you're working on now is
it's to be shot in next February.
Okay.
In 6 months. In I don't know, more than 6 months actually.
nice.
And we've started from now. It's an insane amount of music to be written, because it's a story that develops in 60 years.
Okay.
So we have 60 years to cover.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's the score, and there is also a lot of clubs and a lot of countries.
Right.
Yeah. So it's going to be something. This is necessary to do it this way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be, because they will have to shoot scenes in a club where a band is playing. Well, what is the band going to play? You need the music first
Right.
to be written, recorded,
Right.
given the band, the actors or whatever. They have to learn how to
They have
pretend to play, so
lip
everything is
sync,
in
yeah.
sync and all of that stuff. So
That's
it's a very but it's a beautiful challenge, because
Nice.
you get to work from now, and you discuss with the director, hey, on page this you said this
Right.
sentence, could it be that? So you
Yeah.
have the time to reflect on it and to get inspired, to come try things. And he's supposed to come today or tomorrow to hear another theme I wrote on the piano.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. This one I'm because I'm also testing him.
Right.
3 themes, he's heard them fully produced, mock-up, so he hears everything. This one I've chosen to just piano, because I know he
Right.
understands it.
Right.
And and if it's going to work on the piano, it's going to work
Nice.
with the orchestra. So yeah,
Nice.
it's
Cool. So I like to wrap up each podcast with the same kind of set of questions. The first one is, what is your most influential teacher?
easy.
Okay.
Teacher that taught me directly, Christopher Young.
Okay.
He's a famous film composer here. He was one of my teachers at USC.
Okay.
I ended up working for him for 5 years. After he said, "What are you doing after school?" I said,
Nice.
"I don't know." He was like, "Well, do you want to work for me?" I'm like, "Yes."
Nice.
And it was very influential, because I could see, like, hands-on
Right.
what it was to work on Spider-Man and
Right.
huge movies.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Awesome. And then I don't know if this one really applies to you since you work a lot here, but the question is, what is your favorite reference track? If you were to go to a new studio and kind of learn the speakers and learn the room, but in your case, it could be, what is it to get you inspired or something like that?
I would play Mahler's Second.
Okay.
That would be the one. If that one is not appropriate for that day, especially if you're going like 10 a.m. or something, then second movement of Beethoven's Seventh.
Okay.
If that translates on those ATCs and all those PMCs
Yeah.
and all vocals,
Yeah.
it's gonna,
Nice. Nice. Cool. And the last question, which I don't know if it totally applies to you as well, but the question is, what is one tidbit for an upcoming engineer, but let's say in your case, for an upcoming composer?
I'll tell you both, because
Okay.
the engineer, I consider it as I do engineer myself.
That's true.
All right.
Yeah.
So, they have to know their stuff. They have to know their plugins. They have to very well. They have to be decisive on. I don't like, actually, speaking of engineers, I don't like those engineers when you see a track, and you see on that plugin row more than, I don't know, 3, maybe 4. When you
Right.
have like 20 plugins on that channel, you've lost me.
Yeah. You're doing too much.
So, yeah, exactly. to me, less is more.
Yeah.
So, know your craft, know your equipment, and actually listen to a lot of music, because
Right.
all the genres. Because you know what, there's beauty in mixing a rock song, a blues song, a jazz song,
Yeah.
classical piece, orchestral. So the concepts are all the same. It's all about
Right.
balance, frequency, and wherever placement and intention of the composer. So pay attention to the musicianship that the composer is trying to
Right.
convey.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, and don't get married early. No, do it whatever you want to do. So it doesn't matter. For young composers is again the same thing. Just listen to as much as you can and just keep writing and keep producing and learn from your mistakes. And again, learn your craft, learn your machines, your instruments, your tools.
Exactly. Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brendan.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool. Thanks so much for checking out the show. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review or comment. I'll see you next week.